Friday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock, time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope your weekend is off to a great start. Colin Cowherd from The Herd with Colin Cowherd on how he sees the Browns quarterback situation playing out in 2025.
My guess is Joe Flacco wins the starting job. He's the most NFL ready to play. Joe can win you a game or two. And the first 4 weeks, the staff is going to tell him, Shedor's not ready, Shedor's not ready. My guess is they go 0-4, maybe they go 1-3. Haslam's going to come down on Sunday, October 5th, and he says, I want Shedeur to play against Minnesota. And the staff's going to say, we're in London, it's rough. Just give us 1 more week. We don't want Shedeur having to go overseas. It's a big ask. And so they stave off the owner for a week. Flacco loses that game. I believe Shedeur starts Sunday, October 12th. If Flacco wins that game, he'll get another start October 12th against Pittsburgh, and he'll win that game. I do think he'll lose to Miami and New England. They'll have a bye, and then Shedeur, the staff won't be able to hold it off any longer, will play Sunday, November 9th at the Jets. By the way, some tough teams down the stretch for Shedeur. But if you believe, and many do, that the owner, he's the one that wanted Manziel. He's the one that did Deshaun Watson. He's the one that wanted Baker Mayfield. This is an ownership group that likes headlines at quarterbacks. Shedeur's a headline. Dylan Gabriel's not.
2 things, Colin. If you can see so clearly into the future, I need the Powerball numbers, and I need them now. Also, Ben Simmons still isn't the face of the franchise or the face of the NBA instead of LeBron James, and it's been almost 7 years. Joe Thomas was asked which newest Brown he's most excited to play for the Browns.
To answer his question, I'm really excited about Quinshon Judkins.
I'm glad you said
that. The running back from Ohio State, the power runner, the every down running back. My son was up on the stage with me in Green Bay for the draft, got to announce that pick, was very special for me, but I think he's the guy that we need. I know it was a little disappointing to kind of see the writing on the wall that Nick Chubb is probably not going to be on the team next year, but I think, sometimes it's tough in the NFL, but you have to be realistic about what you have and where your guys are. Even players that are as beloved as Nick Chubb, you need to replace him, and you need to find that guy who could be that Nick Chubb for the next 10 years. And I think that's a Quinshon Judkins.
And again, perspective of an offensive lineman relative to blocking for a running back like that is important. All right, longtime Browns beat reporter Tony Grossi with what the Haslam Group's letter back to Chris Ronayne about building the dome in Brook Park means.
Tell everybody, aside from the emotion and some choice words that the Browns had for your Cuyahoga County Commissioner, what is the substance of what we learned yesterday?
The Haslams would love for everyone to be behind this project, but if the county is not going to give it its blessing, so be it. They're going ahead to Brook Park. The state money is the key thing, the $600 million that the state is close to committing. And once that is official, which will be in about a month, it's all systems go. And I think the Haslam Sports Group wants the public to know that we gave the county and the city every chance to hop on board on this deal, and we're going ahead without them. Now, what could that mean in the future? Maybe the Haslam's investment in the lakefront isn't going to be as great as the city expected.
And it's a developing thing. Politicians do things for different reasons. I don't see the reason to. It's in the region. Someone wants to develop an area of Northeast Ohio that needs to be developed and wants to put $1 billion of their own money. Get behind it. If they're going to do it, they're going to do it. Get behind it. All right, former NBA players, Udonis Haslem, Jay Williams, on if they consider this Cavs season where they lost in the conference semifinals again a failure.
Hell yeah. And they know that. I'm not saying nothing they don't know. Donovan Mitchell knows that. Max knows that. Those guys in that locker room know that. When you make a move to bring in DeAndre Hunter mid-season and you already have the number 1 seed, you're making that move to say, hey, we're going for it all. We want to match up with the Bostons. We understand we have small guards. We're going to address the issues and our weaknesses right now because we want to win it all. So, hell yeah, they know that. And if it wasn't a failure to them, then I'm misjudging those guys in that locker room.
UD, who played for this franchise? Who won a world championship?
LeBron James.
LeBron James, yeah. Second most wins in franchise history for this team. You're damn right it's a failure. Those are the expectations.
Yes.
You gear up to beat Boston. You have a great regular season. This is proving a point that people were saying that you're a regular season team. I don't believe that, but that's what you live with in the offseason.
Yeah, until you get it done in the playoffs, everybody's going to say you're a regular season team. All right, Guardians took 2 of 3 from the Brewers. Now they head on a 10-game road trip. It begins tonight in Cincinnati, and it will begin an hour earlier than most thought. They moved up the start time for the game in Cincinnati to 5:10. Stephen Vogt on how he views things come together for the Guardians.
Yeah, we're playing good baseball. We're pitching really well. Today wasn't the case as much, but we're throwing the ball well, top to bottom. Our guys are getting better. We're improving. We're going to continue to improve because we're going to work. That's who we are. We're never satisfied. We never think we have it figured out. I love where our group is. I think we're trending in the right direction. We've had a crazy schedule. This has been a lot. And now here we go again, 13 in a row. So really going to enjoy the off day and get ready for the weekend.
Next 10 are on the road again. First pitch tonight, 5:10. Expected storms in Cincinnati. They moved it up an hour. It'll be Tanner Bybee on the hill for the Guardians. Brady Singer will be pitching for the Reds. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Browns are up first. And it is Brad Ward from the Orange and Brown Report, All Eyes on Cleveland podcast. On the other side of the break, stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. Browns are first up on Sports4CLE. Mina Kimes, Brett Coleman from the Mina Kimes Show, talking about the Browns offense, how it looks on paper for 2025.
Ooh, this receiving group. Ooh. Judy, Tillman, Rash.
Yes.
They drafted Harold Fannin Jr., who joins Dave Njoku. They drafted 2 running backs, Quinshawn Jenkins and Dylan Sampson, both of whom I like. Offensive line is Dwan Jones, Bitonio, Posich, Teller, Conklin. They assigned Kevin Jenkins. This is not a good offense, man. Like,
and I think that's also why they didn't draft a quarterback high.
Yeah.
Because like, who's gonna succeed with this?
But they also could have a receiver. Did he really have to take 2 running backs? Could have drafted an offensive lineman. I don't understand their draft. Whatever.
I think taking this 2 running backs is a signal of like, we will run the ball 40 times a game, whether it's working or not, because we have to. Like that will be their identity.
With that, let's welcome in Brad Ward from the Orange and Brown Report, the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast. Brad, I can't argue there's a lot of question. We've talked about it. A lot of question marks with the offense. And if you want to look at it skeptically, a lot of guys that haven't done it before. So I get the skepticism.
Yeah, I will push back a little bit on Mina Kimes going through, looking at that on paper like, oh, this is terrible offense. Like, I mean, you can point to the offensive line and say, I guess they're a little aged, but, you know, they also brought in Cornelius, who's a good swing tackle, and they have Zach Sinter, who's coming along as a guard. And, I don't think the offensive line necessarily is bad. I think they were more so bad in the scheme last year, and they were hurt. When healthy, and you add Tevin Jenkins to that, who can play multiple positions on the offensive line, I'm not as concerned about the offensive line. I'd look at the running back group. I think they're pretty good. I think her point about wide receiver is fair, certainly. Beyond Tillman, who is by no means a certain thing either, but beyond Tillman, it's a lot of question marks, and he's even a bit of a question mark. So I get her point at wide receiver, but to look at the offensive line and running backs and say this is a bad offense, I don't think that's necessarily fair.
No, I think there's, and we had talked before we got rolling. I'm curious to see how much of an improvement. It's going to be mostly the same guys, but they're going to be asked to do different things. They're going to be asked to do things that they've done in the past, as opposed to what they were asked to do last year.
Yeah, they'll be, we're turning back into the full Stefanski model here, and I think, and they're at their best when they're multiple in the run game, in their run scheme. So, in the wide zone is a big part of that. So, bringing that back into what their identity was, you heard their exit interviews. They all talked about it. We need to get back to what we do best, and so. I think that is a big part of this, and they need to forge an identity quickly if they want to win some games early.
So we've talked a little bit about the wide receivers, and I'm with you that there's a need there. You have potential wide receiver trade targets that the Browns could explore. An article you wrote for the Orange and Brown Report. You've got Alex Pierce from the Colts, Cortland Sutton, Broncos, Christian Watson, Packers, Quentin Johnston from the Chargers, Hill, Noah Brown, and then Bourne, Polk, and Javon Baker from the Patriots. Take us through that article. Is there one of them that you really think fits with what the Browns do?
Well, the guy that, first of all, they're all flawed players or else they wouldn't be on the trade block, right? So I think Alec Pierce is the most, I guess, what I would consider probably the best fit as far as he's a burner. He gets downfield. He can play the X. He can play all over and isn't just, restricted to the slot where the Browns just have so many slot receivers, right, at this point. And they need guys that can play on the outside too. So I think that his speed element would be big for them. They drafted Tyler Warren. They have Pittman. They have Downs. They have A.D. Mitchell. And they're probably not going to want to play Pierce. Now, his problem is he drops the ball a lot, right? So we've seen that movie before. Sutton, there's interest there. They drafted Pat Bryant. He's in a contract year to replace him. So they're probably not going to want to pay him. I don't know if you're the Browns, you want to bring in an older wide receiver to take away reps from these younger guys. I'm more about finding out what they really are, you know what I mean, than bringing in somebody that isn't going to be here in the long run, which is kind of why I wish they would have made more of an effort to keep Elijah Moore around at 25 years old. But either way, Christian Watson has been injury prone. They drafted Matthew Golden. They have Reed. They have a ton of wide receivers. Reed, Doubs, Hicks, Hardman they brought in. They have a ton of wide receivers there. So I'd take any one of their wide receivers. I think there are a bunch of twos there. I like all of them. So if they were looking to move one, I would be interested. Mike Williams and Ladd McConkey are the guys in Los Angeles. So Quentin Johnston may be on the block. Tyreek Hill, I don't think they need that drama or that contract. But he does want out. Noah Brown. Noah Brown is interesting because he does kind of solidify. He's a younger receiver, and he solidifies your number 3 guy, right? Like he would raise your floor of your room a little bit, give you some production. They brought in Debo there. They have Luke McCaffrey. And then, it's a logjam in the Patriots. I listed 3 names there because they added Steph Diggs, Mac Hollins, drafted Kyle Williams, who I loved. They loved DeMario Douglas. So left over, you have Kendrick Bourne, Jalen Polk, and Javon Baker. 2 of those guys are second-year wide receivers, which I would kick the tires on. Do I think the Browns will trade at this point. I don't. I might be surprised at this point, Dave. I think they may just roll in with what they have and try to just learn what they have in their room. Maybe if it's bad enough on cut down day or at some point later on, they add somebody. But once again, I don't think there's any reason to add like a 30-year-old wide receiver at this point who isn't going to be a part of your future. If you're going to bring somebody in, they better be young enough that they can be a part of your future at this point.
So I know you've talked about this on the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast. Objectives for 2025. What are they trying to do here?
Figure out who's going to be around. You got to try to identify what these quarterbacks are going to be in a 1 year, right? Like, what can these guys do is kind of the more of the question to take me off of using my 2 firsts on a quarterback again next year. It'd have to be a lot, right? It'd have to be like a Brock Purdy fit type. Oh wow, we can win with this guy in his rookie year, or he goes out and sets the touchdown record for rookies, or something really really eye popping. I think for me to come off of the idea of taking a quarterback high again next year. I think you got to keep swinging. Now, Shedeur Sanders is tremendously talented, I think, so he could go do something special like that and kind of take the city by storm. But I think learning what you have in Gabriel and Sanders is a huge part of this season. The difficult part is balancing. You have veterans on this team, and you have to compete as well. So how do you balance that, right? Ideally, one of these rookies comes up and grabs the job, and you can literally say he gives us the best chance to win, and we're finding out about him. But I don't know if that'll happen early in the season.
Yeah, no, I agree with you wholeheartedly. All right, relative to Shedeur Sanders, former Steelers defensive back Ryan Clark, who played for Mike Tomlin, with what he knows about the Steelers relative to Shedeur Sanders.
I'm talking about Shedeur Sanders.
You can
I'm talking
tell,
about somebody early in the first
here's
2
what
rounds.
I can tell you about the draft. If he would have fallen to the 7th round,
Right.
the Steelers weren't drafting Shedeur Sanders.
Why?
Why?
Shedeur Sanders was not going to be picked by the Pittsburgh Steelers. Whatever the evaluation was, whatever decision was made, he was not going to be the quarterback picked, drafted, called by Mike Tomlin over
Because
time.
of talent, or
That's
because
break-
the
that's
hoopla
break-
they
yeah.
felt like that came with it?
That's
Ryan?
breaking news.
That was not going to
That's
happen.
breaking news, and here's why. Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan was seen talking about Shedeur Sanders. They interviewed him, etc. This is when we were speculating whether or not he was going to be a first-round pick. How in God's name do you justify him going to the 5th round? Like, to say even if he went to the 7th round, then what the hell were you talking about him for? What did you waste your time? You interviewing 7th rounders? You giving them that kind of time, that kind of attention? That's just further evidence something other than football tainted Shedeur Sanders coming into that draft.
That's probably accurate. Why do you talk to a guy because you got to find out about the guy, and
Yeah.
just because he's not right for the Steelers doesn't mean he's not right for the Browns.
Yeah, I don't put a lot of stock in that. A lot of teams took him off their board because in a lot of teams, of course they interviewed him because the talent in the tape shows you a guy that's worth a pick in the 1st or 2nd round, right, at quarterback. And but a lot of teams looked at it like, they didn't want to deal with the nonsense. Now, I find that Pittsburgh I don't get Pittsburgh as much because they bring in knuckleheads all the time, right? You know what I mean? To play on their team. So I don't really get that one.
Pickens,
So-
David, they've got a wide receiving room full of knuckleheads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, it feels like a culture that could handle that. So that one's weird to me that they would take such a hard stance on that. If you recall, there was some articles that came out right after they interviewed him that was like the worst interview they've ever done. But then that was like, oh, that's not true. The Pittsburgh's actually high on him. So maybe there was some truth to that. I don't know. But it doesn't mean anything to me. The reason he fell are for reasons that some of which are completely out of his control.
Right.
And some of it was in his control, but he got bad advice from people around him, and that's the reason he fell in the draft.
And keep in mind, it's a 22, 23-year-old kid, so you know, I don't think anybody who has lived to be our age wants somebody looking back at some of the things you did when you were 22 and 23, some of the decisions you make. Live and learn. So, you know, what are you going to do moving forward?
There's no question about that statement.
All right. NFL owners are taking a look at changing the playoff seeding. So right now they're doing it by division winners and all that. They're going to look at potentially doing it strictly by record and reseeding after the first round. Also, the push play proposal for now remains the same as it was in March. That coming from Albert Breer. But here is, they may seed by record, which, yeah, they should probably do that.
Yeah, I think one thing that it does for them is it will make games, eliminate some of the dead games you get at the end of the year, right? By doing that, I think that if you're playing for seeding, like a lot of those games that matchups in like week 17 and 18 are become non games, don't matter at all, because the conference winner is already solidified. But if that doesn't matter and it's more about the actual seeding and winning games, then I think some of those games end up mattering more at the end of the season if you're playing for strictly just straight up record gets your seed.
Yeah.
In the reseeding, I don't really have a problem with that. I don't know the influence that we'll have. I guess it makes sense. Is it just after round one?
Yeah.
Or after every round?
I think it's just after round one. And the thing with the division winners thing always was a head scratcher, because some divisions are bad for a given year.
Yeah.
And you get extra games within a bad division that leads to winning a division. But it'll be interesting to see if they do in fact change that. Brad Ward and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we will continue to talk Browns. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
At the Ohio Lottery, we make Keno fun your way. So go on, pick your wager. Will it be $1, $2, $10, or more? Your call. Then it's as easy as picking up to 10 numbers. Use any inspiration you like. You can even tag on the booster for a chance to boost your winnings up to 10 times. Every few minutes across Ohio, 20 out of 80 possible numbers are drawn. And if enough of yours match, you win. Keno is always fun your way.
We continue talking Browns with Brad Ward from the Orange and Brown Report and the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast. Former NFL GM Scott McCloughan, his thoughts on Shedeur Sanders and the Browns.
I'm telling you, Shedeur, I saw him. I was on the sideline watching the game in person, and he jumped Travis Hunter's ass like you wouldn't believe. Had his finger in his face. He says, "Don't you ever throw your arms up in the air like that again. If I miss a throw, I miss a throw." And Travis Hunter bowed down to him. That kind of shows what kind of leadership he has. He has enough respect and enough toughness and competitiveness to do that. And I'm like, wow, this guy is pretty freaking cool. Watch his response every time he came off the field, and how he got with the offensive linemen, how he got with the running backs, how he got with the receivers. And he just ran the show. He ran the complete show. And, you know, he's not as athletic as his father, of course. No one really is. But he has the demeanor of an NFL football player. And I'm telling you, you wait and see. I can't tell you that, but in my opinion, that he will be the best quarterback out of this draft when it's all said and done.
It's interesting, Brad, that former GM would see, and I can see NFL guys responding to him. That would not surprise me a little. Older guys, veterans, I could see that.
Yeah, excuse me. He's been taught to kind of manage and work. He talks about him coming to the sideline, getting with the offensive line. I mean, he's been taught to manage the team like a professional quarterback, right? Like, that's how he has been I mean, he's been coached by the best of the best trainers and, taught by his father and other people that have played in the league. He's worked with Tom Brady, you know what I mean? He understands what it takes. At this point, it's about going and taking the job. Yes, getting a response from the veteran, response in the locker room would be a huge step towards winning this job for sure. But if you can take command like that and command that kind of respect, that's a big deal. I mean, the Browns are going to give him every opportunity, and they're going to give Gabriel every opportunity they can to try to come up and take this job. I mean, that would be ideal for them. So I think that they have a good plan in place, and I think he certainly has the experience and the pedigree, I guess would be the right way to say it, to be a leader and take charge of this thing.
So here's where, and I'm curious. I'm trying to think through this. When you look at the quarterback competition for the Browns, what do you want to see from them that would make you think this guy's a start? Not necessarily the rookies, just all four of them. And you got to believe none of them are a slam dunk to win this, I don't think. It isn't like anybody is like, gosh, he's so much farther. You got a 40-year-old guy, a former first-round pick that hasn't done it, two rookies that you saw enough that you drafted. What do you want to see? What's going to make you feel good about this is the guy we should go with?
Yeah, it's tough. It's really not going to be anything that we can see because it's hard for us to really look at even their preseason. We talked about before the show. Kenny Pickett has given Pittsburgh fans a wonderful preseason full of football before and then failed in the regular season. We saw DTR look amazing in the So the preseason isn't worth a ton that way, although the reps in live action are incredibly valuable to these rookies. I would let the rookies play almost every rep in the preseason. I don't think Joe Flacco requires a lot of reps in practice. He knows the offense. We have proof of concept with him. And I think he legitimizes for me, too, Dave. If a rookie comes up and wins this job, it's like, oh, wow, they come up and took the job and they beat out Joe Flacco for it, right? So it kind of legitimizes him taking that job. Whereas, if Flacco wasn't in this room and it was just Pickett and the other two, it'd be like, oh, okay, what did that really take to win the room? So I think he does set a standard there, right? If nobody's ready, at least you have a quarterback ready to go that in Flacco that can run the offense and hopefully with a better run game than the last time he was here where they couldn't run the ball for a yard. And if he was throwing the ball all over the field trying to run out the clock in the fourth quarter of those games, and a better defensive play, then I think that you potentially could have a situation where maybe he manages the game a little bit better and at least gets you off to a start in the season. It would really take somebody. I mean, they would really have to be incredibly impressive. Not that and I think they can, but I think it would have to be guys in the locker room and your coach kind of all in, hey, this kid he's ready. We didn't think he was going to be ready, but he's ready now. Look at him. You know what I mean? And I think it would be that kind of a performance in the off season. They'll have 2 joint practices, so they'll have the opportunity to try to earn it in live reps against other starters. But I think it would take that, almost not just one guy making the decision, but you would see the team gravitate towards him, kind of like we talked about before, like he's the guy and we know it.
So I know you also discussed this on All Eyes on Cleveland podcast. How do you balance it? How do you balance? You got to get a look at the rookies, but you also have 52 other guys, a lot of veterans that don't want to hear, we're playing for next year. They want to win now, especially guys on the line. And I'm looking at Garrett, I'm looking at Teller, I'm looking at Posick, I'm looking at Conklin. Those are guys that are, those are car crashes every snap from guys that don't have a lot left in their careers, if you will.
This is the most difficult thing about this year for me, this question. How do you balance learning about these guys and trying to compete, right? It's why I think Flacco will start the season no matter what. I just lean that way. We got the schedule. It's brutal out of the gate, right? But I think he's never going to play a 17-game schedule, right? But can he come out of the gate and get you a win where you might not have gotten one before? Can he play 6 games for you, right? And get you off to a better start, a 3-3 start or something like that? That would be huge. And then, now you feel like somebody else is ready, or you bring in Shador or Gabriel. I tend to think personally that it will be Shador who rises faster. But I'm not counting Gabriel out. He certainly throws a good ball and is an intelligent kid, right? So, and Stefanski handpicked him, right? So, I think that though you have to make sure when you put these quarterbacks in, decision-wise, that your veterans are behind it. That's the only thing you can do. That they feel like you're not just giving the quarterback a chance to, like they did with DTR, just throw him to the wolves kind of at times, right? They're not just putting him out there to see what he is, but they're putting him out there because he gives you the best chance to win. And when that comes along in this season, we don't really know, but it has to feel like that in the locker room, or else you're going to lose the locker room, right? You're going to lose that respect from your veterans who want to compete. What the Browns can achieve this year, I think, has a high variance. I think the record is the schedule is extremely tough for the first 6 weeks, but I think it lightens up a great deal down the back end. And there's some winnable games there. So, and that may be a rookie playing at that point. So I think we'll learn enough about these guys this year to know if they are the guy or not. And I think that they can compete too. I mean, this is the same roster, almost the exact same roster that won 11 games 2 years ago. So it's each year is its own entity in the NFL. There's a reason we see 4 teams come in and out of the playoffs every year, 4 different teams every year in the playoffs, right? There's a lot of parity. So while a lot of people have counted the Browns out, I'm not counting them completely out. I think they got an uphill battle against their division and so forth. But can they compete? Can they play meaningful football in December? I do think that's possible, and do it with rookie quarterbacks down the stretch.
So along those lines, how good? I look at this defense. I'm like, they have a chance to be really good. They've upgraded the line, I think, significantly. I know JOK missing the season's not great. Schlesinger, that pick makes sense now. And
it does.
And you've got veterans that you added to the safety room.
Yeah, I like them adding the 2 veterans in there. KZ can play the free safety, and Jenkins can play really anywhere. So he kind of fills that McLeod role. And I think what you're asking from this team, more so than in the past, Dave, and you even heard Stefanski talk about this, like that earn your job, earn your place on the team, then earn your role. You heard him talking in that one clip about that. In the past, a lot of this has been like, okay, you're coming back, or you're a pick, or you're the starter here, whatever. But there's competition all over this roster, right? So Ronnie Hickman's going to have to go out and try to win this free safety job from KZ, right? And there's going to be competition at cornerback with Mitchell and Harden, and if Martin Emerson doesn't come back as Martin Emerson, there's going to be guys there that ready to play, to step up. So I think that you approach this season as back to square one, wipe the slate clean from last year, and give guys a chance to compete with the ones. And if they beat them out, they beat them out. I think that's how you approach this, and earn some credibility back with the locker room as far as competing goes. And I think the defense can be terrific. There's still the same talent on this defense minus JOK. And Carson Schlesinger, while he's not JOK, he's very close, and can do some things better than JOK in coverage. So he's a tremendous player, and defense can do a ton. If you only have to score 20 points to win a game, 24 points to win some of these games, they should be in a lot of them. So the defense can change everything for you.
Brad Ward, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Brad.
You're the best, Dave. Thank you for having me.
Brad Ward, make sure you check him out. Orange and Brown Report, you can read his stuff. He is also co-host of the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns. Dalton Wasserman from Pro Football Focus straight ahead. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Mina Kimes, Brett Coleman on Dillon Gabriel and his fit with the Browns. This is from the Mina Kimes Show.
If Gabriel is playing, and I don't know if he will be, you almost have to do a bootleg heavy game plan for him so he can see. Because I was out there at the Elite 11 last summer before Gabriel's last year in college. And he was one of the counselors at Elite 11, and he was going through a throwing session. I thought he was one of the high school kids. I was like, man, this kid's like
He's
17 years old. He's spinning. He's got a great ball. And it's like, oh, no, that's Dillon Gabriel. I was like, oh, God. Like, he is not a large human being. And his center is 6'6". His left tackle's 6'8". His right tackle's 6'6". Like, he's not going to be able to see over these guys. So, like, they will have to roll him out a lot so that he has vision down the field. And, like, I think he throws a good ball. I really do. He's just really, really, really small, like outlier small, even more so than Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
Like, at least Kyler's got freakish athleticism, you know?
Yeah, that's the issue with Gabriel because, like, it looks good when he throws.
Yeah.
And I will say, like, this situation, this offense is what I envisioned for him as a developmental prospect or backup. You know, play action heavy, boot heavy. You spelled it out. It makes a lot of sense. Like, if they had drafted Dillon Gabriel in the 5th round, I would have been like, yeah, perfect sense.
With that, let's welcome in Dalton Wasserman, PFF data analyst, co-host of the PFF College Football Show. Dalton, I get the size questions, and they're legitimate relative to the NFL. Guys are bigger, faster, stronger. Dillon Gabriel's been playing that size against major college competition all his life. It's all he knows. It's not like he suddenly shrunk from 6'3" to 5'11".
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think when you talk about smaller quarterbacks like that, I'm not one usually who's going to exclude guys just because of size concerns, right? And you talk about Russell Wilson having success winning a Super Bowl. Drew Brees was undersized. You know, Kyler Murray's had success. Even the end of last year, we saw Bryce Young, who's even smaller than Gabriel, start to have success. So it's not something that I concern myself with. The thing for me more so is just the arm strength. Like, I think he's got a decent arm, but he doesn't always drive it into those tight windows. And he had a big drop off in his numbers when he had to get in to throwing those balls in those tight windows, especially down in the red zone. Between the 20s, he was really good, and he could throw outside the numbers between the 20s. But I think when you get into those tight windows and throwing the ball over the middle of the field and in the red zone, that's when you start to see issues with Gabriel. And he always, you know, like Mina mentioned there, he's a heavy play action quarterback, whether it was at Oklahoma under Jeff Lebby or last year under Will Stein at Oregon, always ran a heavy amount of play action. So that part should be comfortable to him. But to me, it's about driving the football into those tight windows, over the middle, and in through red zone windows.
And I would caution Browns fans, you're not going to know that, maybe not even in preseason, because there's going to be shells, and when you will see those kind of things will be when the defenses get exotic, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. And you might not see it until preseason games when you can actually hit them, right? Because so often the red jerseys are on the quarterbacks at practice, and it gives you a different feel, right? It gives you kind of a calmer feel of, okay, these guys aren't going to tee off on me. Now, when you get into preseason games, that's when it might matter most, when Gabriel can actually be hit in the pocket. We'll be saying the same thing about Shedeur Sanders as well. That's the real test for a quarterback, is what are you throwing like when the bullets are flying, right? When you can actually be hit, when blitzes are actually coming, when all those disguises are coming, right? And everything's flying 100 miles an hour. That's when it's going to be decided. So that battle with Gabriel and all those guys is going to drag all the way through even the preseason games.
And the thing the Browns liked, they've played a lot of college football. So they've seen a lot of different defenses, not maybe as advanced. And again, every jump, bigger, faster, stronger.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. When you talk about Gabriel having 6 years of experience playing across 3 different schools, and Shedeur Sanders even having 4 full years as a starter, right? Jackson State first for 2 years, and then Colorado under a lot of pressure for the last 2 years. So the experience does help. And I think for both of them, the experience and the pedigree, especially of Sanders, is a big advantage, as opposed to somebody who, we've seen in the past, guys who only start 1 year in college really kind of struggle. Like a guy like Mitch Trubisky comes to mind for me back in the day with the Bears, where he only started 1 year at North Carolina, and that inexperience really showed in the NFL.
All right, you wrote an article ranking rookie skill position players coming into the NFL by situation. So Ashton Jeanty was one with the Raiders, Travis Hunter, Jaguars, Hampton. You have Quinshon Judkins, 15 with the Browns, and just ahead of his teammate, Travion Henderson. What about the way Judkins can fit in with the Browns?
So I think he certainly can fit in. And the curious part for me is, part of that ranking was, okay, what's the path to a starting job? And the other part of it is, how can your team set you up for success, right? So I think Judkins does have a pretty decent path to a starting job if he plays well through the summer, but also competing with another solid draft pick in Dylan Sampson, who I think is a really good player. And you still have Jerome Ford as the incumbent guy from last year, right, on the Browns. So you could see a rotation, but Judkins could be the starter certainly by the middle or end of the season. The big problem, as we're going to talk about a lot with the Browns, is the supporting cast, the quarterback situation we just mentioned, the wide receiver situation we're going to talk about. And this was the 3rd worst run blocking team per PFF grades in the NFL last year, only ahead of Tennessee and New England. So the offensive line, a little bit older, a little bit injury prone, and really struggled last year to open holes in the run game. We saw that even with their backs last year, Nick Chubb and Jerome Ford there. So I think there's a lot of obstacles in front of Judkins, despite the fact that he probably has the inside track to being the top running back in the group.
Relative to rookies, Ashton Jeanty, that was a guy that people thought could go even higher than he did with the Raiders taking him.
Yeah, I mean, Jeanty, when you look at the fit there with the Raiders and what they get out of him, and I understand, look, the Browns taking Mason Graham and then going running back later. I think that makes sense. New England needed offensive linemen, and they got Travion Henderson later, but the Raiders needed that guy. They were last in the league in rushing grade for us, even though their offensive line is actually a pretty decent unit. I don't mind their offensive line, and it's pretty young. I think it's going to get even better. And then you look at the addition of Geno Smith and a credible passing game around it with Brock Bowers, Jacoby Myers, Jack Besh, who I think is going to start for them also. I think Jeanty could be in for a big, big rookie year. I understand why he's one of the favorites for Offensive Rookie of the Year, both for his talent and his situation. And Chip Kelly and Pete Carroll are going to want to run the ball out there in Vegas.
So you also wrote an article, Strongest and Weakest Position Groups After Free Agency in the NFL Draft. And the one we're going to focus on, wide receivers. Strongest, Tampa Bay. Weakest, Cleveland Browns. When you look at that group for the Browns, there's just a lot of question marks.
Yeah, it's really the position, that and offensive line, but wide receiver especially was the one I was most surprised to see them not draft, right? And maybe, originally maybe I thought the plan was, okay, you traded out of the Travis Hunter pick, you took Mason Graham, we'll get a receiver somewhere around 2, 3, 4. There's some depth in this class, even though there wasn't a ton of superstars, but you're looking at a team now that has Jerry Jeudy, who had a solid season on a really heavy target share. He might have had the most targets in the entire NFL last season. So he got a heavy volume, and he's a solid player. But beyond that, a serious lack of proven options, right? Cedric Tillman had a couple of good games before his injury last year. When Jameis was the quarterback, he started to look like a vertical threat, but David Bell and Jamari Thrash, I believe, only caught 3 balls apiece. Elijah Moore is gone. I mean, you're just looking at beyond Jerry Jeudy, so many unproven options. And I know these are young guys and somebody can emerge, but you've got they're shrouded in a lot of mystery right now in that wide receiving core. I think they're going to be relying on Judy and those two tight ends, David Njoku and Harold Fenton Jr., a lot before those guys start to develop, hopefully by the middle of the season.
Yeah, what are your thoughts of Deontay Johnson? Obviously, last year didn't go well for him. 3-stop. Anytime you're on 3 different teams in an NFL season, things aren't going well.
Yeah, I mean, and things, they don't go well intangibly, right? You know, if it's a locker room problem, then you have something that really is hard to overcome. And it was hard to overcome for 3 different teams last year. I think Johnson has talent. He might be the second best receiver, or maybe even the best receiver on this team as far as talent. We've seen what he can do, especially in the past in Pittsburgh. But, you know, if he doesn't beat out these young guys in training camp and through the preseason, it would be really tough for him, I think, at that point to find another spot to latch onto. But he's got a shot to be one of the starters on this team. But whatever is going on intangibly and whatever happened this past year, he's got to put it behind him and just play football.
So you have a big takeaway for each of the 32 teams in the NFL after the NFL draft. Again, this is one of the PFF articles. For the Browns, wide open competition at quarterback and running back. Take us through your thoughts on those two.
Yeah, I mean, the 4-headed monster there at quarterback, right, that I think is maybe the most unpredictable camp battle that we are going to have in the NFL through the preseason. It's going to make for some great July and August content. But when you look at Kenny Pickett, Joe Flacco, Dylan Gabriel, Shedeur Sanders, I couldn't tell you who the lead dog is right there right now. I mean, obviously, it's going to take reps. It's going to take training camp reps, preseason games, all the way through. It wouldn't shock me if we didn't hear a starter announced till the week before the season and final cuts and things like that. And then there's also the issue of teams generally don't carry 4 quarterbacks, right? They usually only carry 3. So you wonder, if one of the young guys emerges, does Pickett or Flacco get moved, right? Or can one of those other guys stay on the practice squad without somebody else trying to swipe them up to an active roster? There's a lot of roster gymnastics, and even just the competition of it all is going to be a circus there at quarterback. And then, like we mentioned before, I think at running back, look, Judkins is probably the favorite to start as a high second-round pick, but you're still looking at Dylan Sampson's a really talented player. They got in round 4 that I thought should have gone earlier than that. Jerome Ford obviously knows the system. He's been there the last couple of years. So you've got an open competition, or maybe we'll see a committee kind of thing going early in the season. But at those 2 spots, I think it's really going to be the focus. And wide receiver, even like you mentioned, with all those young, unproven guys, you're going to see a lot of competition on offense. But coming out of the draft, it's those 2 positions where they took 2 players, quarterback and running back.
Again, Dalton Wasserman, PFF, wrote an article about team building and what the NFL draft this year told us about it. Take us through kind of what you drew from the draft this year relative to team building.
Yeah, I think the 2 big themes for me was when we look at this quarterback class, that obviously was not as strong with proven options as we had last year when 6 went in the first 12 picks, right? I think at the end of the day, and we saw it from the Shedeur Sanders drop, especially early, and then the intangibles or whatever happened in the interview process happened, but teams are still going to lean on physical traits, right? And this happens at all positions. I saw it at a handful of positions, but especially at quarterback. Look, you could convince me that Shedeur Sanders dropped out of the first round because he didn't have elite physical traits. He doesn't. He's not Josh Allen. He's not Patrick Mahomes, one of those guys with the crazy arm or the mobility or anything like that. But Jackson Dart's a little bit better athlete than he is, maybe a little bit better arm. He went in the first round. Tyler Shuck got a little bit more natural arm strength than Shedeur Sanders does. He went early in the second round, and then you throw all the intangible stuff in there, and that's why that happens. Even why Jalen Milroe went ahead of him in the third round instead of Seattle maybe taking a chance on Sanders as a developmental guy. So teams still lean on traits. And then the other thing to me that I noticed is when you look at the types of players teams drafted, especially on the defensive line early in this draft, you saw a clear response to Philadelphia taking the league by storm, running the football. Baltimore running the football with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. Josh Jacobs in Green Bay. Teams that have balance, those are the teams that are winning ball games, that are going to the postseason. 10 of the top 13 teams that called the highest percentage of run plays last year made the postseason. You have to have balance in your offense, and these teams are responding by drafting bigger run-stopping defensive linemen. Shamar Stewart, Mykel Williams. I think about even second-round guys like Alfred Collins, right? Guys like that. Tyleek Williams, who I didn't think would go in the first round, ended up going because you need those run stoppers against those teams that have balance, that are winning all those games with 2-dimensional offenses.
Dalton Wasserman, PFF, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Dalton.
Appreciate it as always, Dave. Thank you.
Dalton Wasserman, make sure you check him out. PFF, also the co-host of the PFF football show, the college football show. We're going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, film breakdown, video analysis. Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com straight ahead. Stay with us.
At the Ohio Lottery, we make Keno fun your way. So go on, pick your wager. Will it be $1, $2, $10, or more? Your call. Then it's as easy as picking up to 10 numbers. Use any inspiration you like. You can even tag on the booster for a chance to boost your winnings up to 10 times. Every few minutes across Ohio, 20 out of 80 possible numbers are drawn. And if enough of yours match, you win. Keno is always fun your way.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Let's welcome in Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Film breakdown, video analysis. We're going to start around the AFC North. We start with the Ravens and a safety I know you liked. They got in the first round late, Malachi Starks, safety from Georgia.
Yeah, he's an elite talent. So what he does, the Ravens always draft well. You're going to see right here his ability to cover the slot. They're going to run a little slot fade at him. He turns his hips, run. His hips are really fluid. He's got great ball skills. He's got great spatial awareness. Then he can play down a line of scrimmage. So this is kind of what Dalton does, right? And for them, they have Kyle Hamilton as well. And what I like about these two guys, you're going to see him here, how he comes downhill when he sees the bubble screen. And what I like about Malachi Starks is that he fits the mold. All these guys I'm going to talk about today fit the mold of the Ravens. And they do a really good job of taking guys who would not only have great potential, but also have great production. And then they'll take some flyers in late rounds that are just super productive guys that are my all anti-combine team that just are good football players. Malachi Starks is the guy with Kyle Hamilton. It's going to give the Browns some issues because he can play down a line of scrimmage, and whoever that quarterback is, when you have those safeties that are kind of that can replace each other, you can do a lot to disguise coverage. So if it's one of those rookies in the game, Malachi Stark gives them the ability to really disguise coverage and give those rookies a fit. So that's why I see the older guys playing. Malachi Starks adds to that defense and fits the mold of the Ravens.
Then late in the second round, they come back and they take a guy that some had projected as high as the middle of the first. Off the field issues likely dropped him down. Mike Green, edge rusher from Marshall.
This guy led FBS in sacks last year, with 17. You're going to see his ability. He's violent. He has great hands. He's really good in a small area. He comes off the edge. He's got tremendous bend. If you can think about what Myles Garrett wins around the edge, he's got tremendous bend, and he's really violent upon contact. Now, the thing about Mike Green is I had him second on my board to Abdul Carter, and it wasn't that far off. So some of the off-field issues must really concern some teams because athletically, he's as good as it gets. He's in that same category as Abdul Carter, in my opinion, with his ability to play all three downs, his ability to play the run, his ability to, he has a very complex, advanced pass rush scheme. Again, now, in this odd front that the Ravens like to block, this is hard for the Browns to block. And now with Owe and a couple of these guys, it usually leaves a one-on-one matchup with those tackles. So the Browns tackles are going to have to play better, especially against the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Ravens, who like to play that odd front and isolate those tackles because of the odd front. So look for Mike Green to have a big year. He's in a great scheme. Their new defense coordinator, Orr, is a guy who's, the Wink Martindale tree. This is going to be an electric guy off the edge, a guy that's going to give the Browns problems if those tackles don't play better.
So in round 3, the Ravens come back and they add to the offensive line. They get the offensive tackle from LSU, Emory Jones.
Well, we all know about the other tackle, right? But this is, if you watch this whole scheme here, he's such a physical guy. He's a physical, athletic specimen. What I like about him is that he gives you the ability, he can play guard or tackle, he can play left or right side, so he's got great flexibility. And once again, if you see him on this play, how he finishes the play, this is what the Ravens thrive on. And, sometimes they don't really believe in, they do it to a certain extent, but like the arm length, they're looking for guys who are athletic and are nasty. And this is a former basketball player when he was younger, so he's got great nimble feet. He played over 3,000 snaps at LSU, rarely gave up a sack inside or outside. Just a really good Ravens pick here. A guy who's developmental, doesn't have to play right away, but can learn from some other athletic guys and what they like to do in their run game with Lamar Jackson. Great pick here. Had him much higher on boards than other people did just because of that athletic ability.
So round 4, they come back and they go defense again, and they go with a linebacker, Teddy Buchanan, a linebacker from California.
Well, what's interesting, you're going to see this guy. So he closes the ground really, really well, right? So he's going to tackle in space. He's a tackling machine. Started off at UC Davis, transferred out to Cal his last year. And what he does is he's really good in space. And the reason that's good, because the Ravens have a really good front seven, but they need depth, right? You always need depth. You got Roquan Smith inside. This is a guy who can play inside and out. And it just goes to show you, as many guys as I watched, and I watched probably 70 inside linebackers, I didn't have much on this guy. I didn't give this guy much of a look. And then all of a sudden, Ravens pick, and you start looking at his film. He's a really talented guy, runs well in space, tackles well, covers well in the backfield, can play multiple positions. Again, this is a guy that fits the Ravens scheme, that odd front. He can even play the outside backer and rush if needed. They've added to that odd front, which is very, very hard to block in a week's worth of work. And it's something the Browns have struggled with. This is another guy that they added to that front seven that makes it really hard to block.
Yeah, and it kind of a recurring theme. So back in the 6th round, they add another guy to that front, Aeneas Peoples, defensive tackle from Virginia Tech. I know a lot of Browns fans had kind of looked at him and liked what they saw. What do you see when you look at Aeneas Peoples?
So Aeneas Peoples is my all anti-combine. You can see here with a great spin move inside. He's relentless in his attack. Now with the defensive line they had, he doesn't have to be an every down guy. He could be a guy comes in, change of pace, rushes the packer. He's great passer. He's great with his hands. He gets off the ball. His get off. He's the first guy. Every film, every rep you watch, he's the first person who gets off the line of scrimmage every time by a lot. Now this is my anti-combine guy. Short arms. He's about 6 foot, about 280. Did not test well. Some guys are just more than their measurables. Some guys are more than their test scores. Some guys are just elite football players. And this, in my opinion, if you look at like McVay when they took Puka Nacua, and when you look at what the Steelers do, this is a guy that doesn't fit the norm in what you want. But you get him in the 6th round, this is a highly productive guy who fits what you need as a pass rusher. This is what the Ravens do well, and this is why the Ravens and the Steelers and these teams that play great defense have such good defenses. They have great depth, and they build that depth in later rounds with guys who are football players. This is, like I said, this is not a combine guy. This is a football player who's very, very good on film. What you see here is what he does every game against every opponent in a very good league.
Yeah, and a lot of people that grade drafts, which, you know, we can talk for hours about whether you should do that when you do it, but a lot of people think the Ravens improved themselves quite a bit. And that's not a surprise. You and I have talked about it all the time. It seems like the Ravens and the Steelers always find guys, 3rd, 4th, 5th round, that you see, and they're on the field, and they're playing well.
Well, you know, I've said this before. One of the most overused words in football is the idea of culture and what culture is. And what the Ravens did in their draft, it is an example of their culture. It's not something you say, it's something you do. They take guys who are football players first. Now, obviously, in the NFL, you have to have measurables, but they take guys who not only have the measurables, but have production. They're not really, I don't think they're always really worried about what's the ceiling on this guy. They're looking for football players. They're looking for defensive guys who are tough, who can fit their scheme, that odd front. They're looking for linebackers who can tackle. They're looking for safeties that, like Kyle Hamilton, that can play deep and forward. Now they got Malachi Stark, so they got 2 elite athletes in the secondary. They build their run game around toughness, around Lamar Jackson and getting to 2nd, 6th. The Ravens, their culture is to draft guys who fit what they do, the toughness, the ability to practice every day. Watch a Ravens practice. They hit and get after it. I like what the Ravens do. I think the Browns can learn a lot about taking football players first, then worrying about the measurables.
Yeah, the other thing is Steelers and Ravens, and now the Steelers may be undergoing a little bit of a change. They have an identity, and they draft to that identity. We talked all last year. We didn't know what the Browns' identity was because they tried to change it.
Well, the good thing, I will say that's exactly right. So the good thing is it seems like they're going back to Kevin Stefanski's identity. Whether you like it or not, here's what I always say about an offense coordinator. It's not what you run, it's what you can fix. And now Kevin Stefanski's running his stuff, which means he can fix it. He can teach his staff how to fix it. This is what got Kevin Stefanski the job. So I think it's great that they went back to that power run game, or that power run identity, which tells you they didn't draft a receiver. I know 2 guys, those 2 guys being me and you, that wanted one. But they drafted 2 heavy backs. They drafted Fannin, which gets them then 12 personnel, They got a young quarterback. They drafted defense with Schlesinger and a couple other guys. So it tells me they're going to play close to the best. That's how they help the quarterback. And going back to that, at least now they have an offensive identity to match that aggressive style defensive identity. And now you can build on that. Now they got to get the players to make that happen.
Lance Reisland, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Lance.
As always, thanks for having me.
Lance Reisland, make sure you check him out. Always really good film breakdown, video analysis, cleveland.com, as well as the pages of the Plain Dealer. It's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. Have a great weekend. We will see you back here Monday at 4 on Sports for CLE.